Um, Earlier this morning, I spoke to someone who is fluent in English and told me that when French people speak English, it's better to know French. So I feel very sorry for you because I will try to speak English. And I hope that the translator will be happy with that. Well, anyway, it's a great pleasure. It's an honor to be part of this international conference. Among this brilliant and elegant panel that has been chosen for me. And as you all know, the program this afternoon is on intangible cultural heritage, museums, and museums projects. This two-day conference that is currently taking place in Aubusson at the Cité Internationale de la Tapisserie. Many thanks for its director that is allowing us to have this conference. Is more specifically dedicated to the links between intangible cultural heritage, ICH, museum, and for this afternoon, innovation. Thanks to the speaker of this panel, we shall explore various projects, programs that are held by different institutions or that have been engaged through a process of curating exhibitions. We shall travel, geographically speaking, in Belgium, in Italy, and you'll see in Hong Kong. But also we'll travel in terms of exploring new techniques, technology, new media, network to the benefit of our knowledge and hopefully to allow us to discover new policy in terms of safeguarding measures, sustainability, commitment of the community, and involvement of the practitioners, or in terms of also raising awareness to a large audience, and maybe we will see what can be the effects of tourism also, as far as I know. It will also be an opportunity to challenge the notion of innovation, as it was said by Séverine Cachat this morning when she introduced this fourth international conference. Innovation. To start our discussion, and because our first speaker couldn't be among us today, we'll try to transform this bad news into a good one by experimenting innovation through, you will see, video technology. Actually, Sarah Kenderdine will be among us thanks to this video that she has sent earlier. Unfortunately, second bad news, Lily Heidberg was supposed to be there. She's a postdoc with Sarah Kenderdine, but because of being afraid, facing the call on strike by the French, she preferred to stay where she is, which is probably a safer idea. But nevertheless, I know that this video is quite impressive, and as the bio or the CV of Sarah Kenderdine, I would have loved to meet her. It's particularly impressive regarding a commitment to look after immersive and interactive experiences for various institutions, from private galleries to libraries or even museums. The project she wished to share with us is related to a most recent work or research on the form and style of physical movement in 3D space. This project is called the HKMALA, which for the translator sounds like Hong Kong Martial Arts Living Archives. As it had been said, this communication all the communication mustn't last, and Kia told me to repeat that, mustn't last more than 10 minutes, so I try to be straight, particularly with the video, but I know that is 10 minutes anyway. So let's start with this communication by Sarah Kenderdine that some of you may know, which is not my case. Oops. Is it this one? Not too sure. It was good. It was. innovation.
I apologize for this somewhat disembodied voiceover and deeply regret that I cannot join you today. My thanks to the IMP organizers for accepting this placeholder video and for welcoming my colleague and collaborator, Dr. Lily Hibbard, into the conversation this afternoon. I'm presenting the Hong Kong Martial Arts Living Archive, a project which I've co-directed since 2012. Hong Kong is an extraordinary reservoir of intangible heritage, primarily of Hakka people. From the early to mid-20th century, Hong Kong has provided refuge for teeming thousands of immigrants from mainland China, and among them some of the most prominent martial artists in the world. With globalization, urbanization, and dwindling number of practitioners, this living heritage made internationally so famous by Jackie Chan, Gordon Liu, and Hong Kong cinema is now in danger of becoming lost. The Living Archive is a 4D typology based on extensive motion capture and a host of green screen and high-speed video methods. Currently comprised of 130 sets of empty hand and weapon sequences, the archive represents 19 styles by 33 elite practitioners. In total, 53% of the repertoire. This is Oscar. Both his father and his great-grandfather were Kung Fu masters. Echoing advances in labo notation, this project is continuing to advance automated systems for describing and analyzing human movement, a set of resources for teaching and learning through simulation, with applications in serious games, museum exhibits, and even in robotics. Kung Fu forms have traditionally been passed on through oral traditions couched in esoteric language, and more recently in two-dimensional graphics with annotations. The repertoire is based on Taolu, pre-arranged movement sequences used for learning, practicing, and performing traditional martial arts. And these were initially created as mnemonic aids whereby learning consists of memorizing through imitation and repetition. In collaboration with the masters in Hong Kong, the Living Archive is transforming some of these traditions, and motion capture provides us a continuous topological model which allows for the easier retainment of the effective qualities of movement. Mark Franco explores the history of dance notation and documentation, charting the shifts from written coded steps to non-word tracking systems, to images of dancers and a focus on the dancer's body rather than their technique or movement through space, to the development of labo notation, the use of video, and finally the advent of the digital, placing motion capture at the forefront of the documentation timeline. Here you see the president of the International Gaucho Association in his 80s performing in our motion capture studio. We've had 7 exhibitions in the last few years in Australia, Hong Kong, China, and Switzerland. The most recent from last year, Hong Kong Motion at Art Lab at EPFL, and Safeguarding the Community at the Hong Kong Arts Centre. There have been a range of multimedia strategies to reformat the archive in the public domain. This is a 6-sided rear-projected system in 3D, which allows visitors to walk around and view the master from any points of view at 1-to-1 scale. Through an interactive application, the various Kung Fu forms can be reinterpreted as a series of motion over time analytics. This is the interface for these interactive repertoires. Here you see an analysis based on speed of the body at any particular moment in time. And this particle, real-time particle analysis. We can employ Brian Rotman's term, corporeal gestural haptic writing. The difference between capture and notation is crucial here. Instead of translating movement into symbols as is done when speech is transposed into writing, gestural haptic writing is a mediating technology that escapes purely signifying and the representational by operating within interactive, participatory, and immersive regimes. While the true locus of knowledge is always with the body, its removal from the body constitutes a transposition and a potential loss of the essential qualities of authenticity. And here we see a number of theorists, including Taylor, looking at the knowledge transfer capabilities that are expanded by and with the repertoire. Other documentation methods include 500 frames a second, here of Master Wa Wanhua, green screen studio techniques, here a unicorn, the totem of the Hakka people. A linear navigator is used as a thematic browser which allows users to traverse a series of videos on the weapon training. The Hakka were traditionally poor farmers, and their weapons are very crude implements, albeit they were known to be incredibly fierce fighters. The exhibition also includes panoramic video. You can see here in a navigator, and also drone-based footage. These both come from a festival that was held recently only once every 10 years. It's a Jiao festival with over, I think, 50 lions, dragons, and unicorns performing. Taylor acknowledges that enacting the repertoire, propagating knowledge through the body, must be considered as a form of mediation. Applied to intangible heritage, this means that embodied traditions in their ideal state of vitality are involved in acts of representation because their very status as tradition necessitates reenactment. She says embodied and performed acts generate, record, and transmit knowledge. And here you see the processes of documentation create a synthetic link or prosthesis for embodied knowledge transmission. One of the research projects we have in our laboratory involves sports scientists and cognitive psychology taking this knowledge of imitation and transmission from master to novice to the next scientific level. Here we see images of Lam Sai Wing and drawings from a book. He was the first Kung Fu master to use photography in the early 20th century. And the Lam family continue to be at the forefront of the transformation of teaching practices through technology. Referencing these early studio photos of Lam Sai Wing and using motion capture from his great-great-grandson, also an elite Kung Fu practitioner, we created a virtual model of Lam Sai Wing performing iron wire boxing. This shows at life scale inside the exhibitions. Our exhibitions also include hand-painted movie posters from Ghana. This phenomenon was part of the incredible processes of globalization, which has taken Hung Kun Kung Fu to every corner of the world. The posters were used to advertise the movie, which was subsequently shown on a small TV set that you can see on the left-hand side image. This photo is a typical image from a clan meeting in Hong Kong in the 1970s. Today, the situation is quite different. This is Master Lam in the center of the image with his European novices. I'd like to thank you for listening and to Lily especially for continuing the conversation and for the endorsement of my Swiss colleagues to be able to present this at IMP today. Thank you.